Hello out there in YouTube land.
Welcome back to our channel.
Today we're going to talk about something that is honestly very private and means a lot to us.
And to be truthful, it's something that is actually greatly upsetting to us, and it incenses us,
It does.
if we want to get down to it.
And it's something that is normally so private that we don't talk to people about, but we've seen so much of it that we've decided to go public.
Because really, awareness is kind of needed in this situation, and that topic that we are really going to aim at today is being childless and defining what a family is.
And why being non-judgmental matters. Because people judge us honestly, constantly.
Yes. And it's truly discrimination.
Hardcore.
And we'll kind of step into it a little bit. There are a couple of situations that really stand out.
Yes.
And one, from what I've seen other people that I know go through, is whether they have chosen, their choice not to have children. And be it that person might be single, they may be married, and they just simply don't want to do this whole thing of becoming a parent. A parent is a full-time job, and we're not here to say anything else to the contrary.
No.
It takes a lot to raise a tiny human. So, many kudos go out to people that, are parents. But I think that society does a great injustice to people that are not parents due to a choice they've made. And that choice could be, somebody is very career-oriented, and having a child was never on their radar. That's okay.
Or if someone just honestly never felt the drive to have children, that's okay too.
Whatever their choice is, needs to be respected.
They shouldn't be told that, oh, you'll change your mind one day.
Maybe they won't.
Yeah.
Maybe their child is their creativity. Maybe all they need is a goldfish or a dog. Maybe they need nobody else. Maybe they just need their partner. Whatever that choice is their choice.
Yeah, it's up to them completely.
The other side of it, the more double-edged sword, are the ones that have to be childless. And that can be a variety of reasons, too. This is where I've seen the more
discriminatory practices.
And cruelty.
Yes, absolute cruelty.
When a person is told that they cannot have children due to a medical reason, be it something like endometriosis, or their reproductive anatomy just isn't conducive.
Yeah. Or if they have cancer.
When I've seen a good example of discrimination is when a couple is married for a while, or together for a while. You don't have to be married. And then comes the question, the inevitable question, when are you going to have kids? Well, to be frank, it is nobody's business to know when or when you will not have children. That is the choice of the couple.
Yes.
In the case of a health problem, be cognizant that that person may have wanted kids at one point, may have gone through multiple fertility rounds. And those treatments are brutal. They're brutal on a level of physiology. They're brutal on the psyche side of it, the psyche. Because every time that treatment doesn't work, that's a blow to that person
Mm-hmm.
and that person's partner. And a lot of times, they live their lives in 21-day segments. So at the end of 21 days, after a trigger injection, and these injections and treatments, as I said, are brutal.
Yes.
They do horrible things to mood. They make people feel awful. You know, the women that undergo them have to have injections in their stomach. That's hard on the person physically.
And barbaric, actually.
It
I mean,
is.
unfortunately, it's the only way that fertility medicine can be done right now, because that's as far as the technology has progressed. But it's barbaric.
It's barbaric, and it's rough. And then if they're unsuccessful at an insemination, or you know, they're told to go home and have date nights, and then a week later they find that, you know, it didn't work, that's a huge blow. And eventually that person may or may not have to undergo a hysterectomy and lose everything. And a radical hysterectomy takes everything out. And not
Yes.
all women have to go through that. Some go out with partial hysterectomies. Then comes the other mental blow. If you're a woman that has had a hysterectomy, not by your choice, or you've just gotten to that point with something like endometriosis that you just do not have a quality of life anymore, and you opt to go speak to a surgeon about a hysterectomy, there's a period of time that you question your sexuality. Are you still a woman?
Mm-hmm.
And there is an entire mentality of healing that needs to occur.
And it isn't something that happens overnight. It takes years.
It does. And the partner that you're with, they go through the same cycle with you, not as the patient.
But that person sees all the hardships the other person goes through, and
And they
also
lose
has
too.
a lot of mental issues regarding, they watch what the other person goes through, watch all the treatments, watch all the surgeries, and the whole thing becomes a very horrific state on the marriage itself, or the couple in general, not necessarily married, but the two people together that are trying to have a child through fertility go through so many emotional trials besides the actual treatments, that it is a horrible process.
It is. And, you know, statistically, marriages do end, partnerships do end during this process. And that's just a testament to how stressful this is for the person. And by whatever means that childlessness occurs, there are things that I have heard and I have seen that just appall me that somebody else would say to someone. And one of those is telling the person that they are barren. And that word to me is awful.
It is.
That brings up barren desert. Well, I'm sorry, when I see a person, that person is, they're some of a whole.
Yes.
They're the whole of,
And I would equate it to as being as cruel as telling someone who is of African American descent using the N-word. It is cruel. Everyone knows what it means. It is mean spirited to say, and it should
Yes.
not be said.
It should never be said. Because that person is an energetic being. They are luminescent in their own right.
And they survived an ordeal.
Right. The other thing that I've seen is almost the immediate push to have that person be around children.
Mm-hmm. It's intensive. They take on a view that if you've had a hysterectomy and you're childless, that you suddenly have become their personal babysitter.
And that's not the case at all.
No.
Or that, oh, you have to come to my child's birthday party. Oh, you have to see all the pictures of my baby. Believe me, they're happy that you have a baby, and they're happy for your happiness.
And they're happy that your child is healthy. But when they have just gone through these surgeries, and the chance of having a child themselves has essentially been robbed from them, the last thing a person in that situation needs to do or wants to do is to be around children, because it is the nailing in the coffin that they failed. And it doesn't matter that it wasn't their fault. It's, society has this huge thing that if you aren't a mother, you failed.
You failed. And that's also for fathers, too.
Mm-hmm.
By no means, and this can be two dads, or this can be two moms that
absolutely.
They have had failures with surrogates. In any way, shape, or form, there's that word at the end, you failed. Well, you know what? You didn't fail. You just had another path put in front of you. And I think that people need to start realizing that the pain that somebody feels immediately after that, and it can even be, from a miscarriage too. A miscarriage, hysterectomy, whatever has happened. Holding that baby may be the most painful thing that person has to do in a day. Because they have this marathon of thoughts going through their heads. Why is this not something that I can do? How did I end up, not having this child? And for some, maybe they want to immerse back in. Maybe that's how they heal. And that's a very personal choice.
But most people that I've talked to, and I know a lot of people you've talked to too,
Mm-hmm.
It's the other way. You need time to heal before you can mentally handle being around children, helping with a child if you choose to help with a child, or even looking at photos of children.
Right.
It seems to be this impulse that if they find out that you've had a hysterectomy, they're like, well, here's my child, this will replace your pain. Here, look at 40,000 pictures. Here, look at a video about a baby. And the only thing you want to do is slit your throat because you're having babies shoved in your face because you couldn't create one.
Right. And that brings me to another point, and something that I've seen in workplaces.
Mm-hmm.
And this is astounding to me. And it is the phrase, well, you don't have a family, so can you work Christmas Day? Can you work New Year's? Can you do this? Can you take a later shift? Frankly, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
A family does not have to be mom, dad, and X amount of children.
Mm-hmm.
A family can be two people. A family can be a person and their pet.
Family can be a circle of friends.
Yes.
A family is whatever you make your family to be. Just because someone does not have a child does not mean they don't have a family.
And it does not mean that their time means less.
Yes.
And that they may not want to go spend that time with their spouse or go for that hike up Long's Peak in Colorado. Never, ever use the phrasing, because you do not have a family, you can. That is cruel beyond anything else.
And, another thing that really bothers me is I've seen online people say things like, well, you're not complete until you have a child. How are you not complete? Seriously. You're a human being. Whether or not you have a child has nothing to do with you personally.
Exactly. And it has nothing to do, you can find happiness.
Mm-hmm.
As I said, if that door closed or that path shut down, you have another one. and you
Yeah.
can find your completion. That's not somebody else's completion. It's yours. It's your path. And far be it from anybody to judge you for it
Yes.
or to discriminate you for it.
And another form of discrimination I see is people assume a lot. And what I mean by that is, here's a good example. On the anniversary of my cancer diagnosis, I was asked by a family member to make a blanket, a baby blanket. Now, this person knew about my diagnosis. They knew I had had to have a hysterectomy. They knew exactly when I was diagnosed. They knew when my treatment started. And they knew exactly what type of cancer it was, the fact that it was ovarian cancer and I'd had to have the hysterectomy, the whole 9 yards. And they asked me to make a baby blanket on the anniversary of the date I found out I had cancer. I can understand not remembering the exact day, but you'd remember the month. You'd remember it was summer. And I do not, in any way, shape, or form, believe that that was anything other than selfishness, because her child had damaged the blanket they originally had, and they wanted me to drop everything, recreate this blanket, and do it in a period of 3 weeks.
Without any respect to what that would mean.
When you go through chemotherapy, a lot of chemotherapies you end up with neuropathy. That includes pain and tingling in your hands. In order to crochet this blanket, that is making 100 little teeny tiny squares with hands that are full of pain and numbness.
And then thinking about just what you're making.
Yeah. Every single stitch, it was a reminder that I couldn't make one for a child I would have because I can't have children. And if anyone doesn't believe that that's not a horrible mental state to believe, to even remotely be in, then you don't understand what it is to be human.
Exactly. And I think that another assumption that I have heard that astounds me, again, when you trust a confidant or you're in somebody's confidence and they know what's gone on with you and they ask immediately after, "Oh, are you going to adopt now?" That person's not thinking about adoption after all of these procedures
No.
or after these surgeries or after, they've had a lot of loss. They are, for all intents and purposes, in mourning for
Yes.
something that was very personal to them, and they're having, at times, mental crisis.
Yes. And in fact, there is a very high suicide attempt rate with people that have attempted fertility and it hasn't worked, and for people that have had to undergo hysterectomy because of these things. People are undeniably cruel.
And that is something to me that, again, it falls under that question, is so personal. It is so not need to know.
Yeah.
If somebody you know has gone through something like this, or even if they've chosen to remain childless,
Mm-hmm.
not for a medical purpose, but just because that's what they want to do with their life, respect it.
And don't think of them as less of a person because they don't have a child.
Exactly.
And we've even been in doctor's offices where women with children are called first over us when our appointment was before theirs. And the reason we know that is because, when you sign in, the numbers are written down. And these people have come in after and have been called over because they have kids and you don't. And that's wrong.
It makes the person feel lesser, and they're not lesser.
No.
Their time is not lessened. They are not to be shoved in a corner and forgotten.
And thought of as the old crone to be thrown off the boat or the Titanic because you only save women with children.
Yes.
That's the way a lot of people act, and it's horrific and awful. And in this modern age, really, are we thinking that old-fashioned?
That's the shocking part right
Yeah.
there. Where are the minds? Where's the logic?
It's like, we all should be humans. We understand that horrific things happen, but don't put someone else, shove them to the side because you don't think they're worth anything just because they're not just like you. Really?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where this really stems from. Because you didn't conform to the box and you aren't doing exactly what they did, then you're wrong.
And I've even seen it on Instagram. You know, sometimes I'll follow a lot of women that are proponents of, very independent things. You know, women hunting, women going out and doing, a lot of outdoor stuff. And then it becomes, I'm having a baby and everything's about moms.
Yeah.
You know, for all the mamas out there. Be very careful with that, because there are some women that follow you and look up to you that are not mothers.
And in fact, I've stopped subscribing to people on YouTube or following people on Instagram or Twitter because they do that very thing, because suddenly, once again, I'm completely alienated.
And I don't understand that. A woman is a
No.
woman is a woman.
And we're not saying that, if you're pregnant, say you're pregnant if you want to. It's a celebration. But don't make every single post about that thing. If you started your channel to talk about hiking, continue talking about hiking.
Have, subsections on it. Or,
Yeah.
Being pregnant and having children is a celebration for those that choose to and can. But be mindful of those that cannot.
Yes.
And I think lastly, the thing that I have seen, and this is a little bit of awareness, and it actually made me pretty proud. And this is a good point. I've seen some mothers posting things about April Fool's Day and saying, oh, look, I'm pregnant. And they post that it's disrespectful.
It is.
Because that's not a joking matter to many, many women. And many, partners.
Yeah. And even for those that, have children, it's not a joke to them either.
No.
Some people have gone through numerous fertility treatments to have that child, or they think they'll never be able to have a child because of some sort of situation, and they actually manage to have a child, and so they're happy. Pregnancy and having a baby is never a joke.
No, it's not. And being childless by whatever means is never something to discriminate against.
And please, anyone out there, if you think you're lesser because you don't have a child, ignore it. You are not lesser. You're every single bit of a whole human being you were before anything that happened.
And you are important.
And you have just the same amount of talents and things to offer to the world that you did before.
Exactly.
So with that, we'll end for today. Thank you for listening. If you want to comment below about experiences you've had with this subject, please. We'd be more than happy to discuss things with you.
Keep it very
respectful.
And if you like what you've seen here, if you like our channel, please remember to subscribe and ring the bell.
Till next time.
Bye.